The rain drummed steadily against the cafe's large windows, streaking the glass with silver rivers. Inside, the warm glow of hanging lights created a cocoon of calm, but at one corner table, a little girl sat clutching a broken toy, her eyes wide and filled with silent fear. She was no more than 8, with chestnut hair tied neatly in 2 braids, her small hands trembling around the fractured wooden soldier she held. She looked across the room, at a man sitting alone near the espresso machine. He was older, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, the kind of man who moved through life as if the world bent around him. Yet his eyes were distant, lost in calculations of wealth and deals. And then her voice, soft but unwavering, pierced through the ambient noise. "Mr. Can you fix my toy? It was our last gift from Dad." The words hung in the air, fragile yet impossibly heavy. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like this video. Comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Jacob Ellis, the millionaire, glanced at her without a hint of impatience, though his mind was crowded with spreadsheets, mergers, and deadlines. There was something about the way she spoke, not the words themselves, but the weight behind them, that made him pause. The little girl's eyes, wide and pleading, seemed to hold a grief too deep for her age. He hadn't expected this in his usual Thursday morning ritual of black coffee and solitude. Yet, instinctively, he reached across the small aisle and took the toy in his hands. It was old, scuffed at the edges, missing an arm, yet lovingly crafted. Jacob could feel the care in its imperfections. Her name was Grace, and as she explained, her father had passed away 6 months ago after a sudden illness. He had given her this toy the night before his hospitalization, promising it would always be with her, a reminder of his love. She tried to fix it herself, but couldn't, and the local toy shop refused to help, dismissing it as too old or beyond repair. Jacob listened silently, a strange warmth beginning to creep through his chest. In a world of transactions and profit margins, he hadn't realized how heavy a child's heartbreak could be until now. Jacob offered her a seat, and together they examined the toy. He didn't know much about toys, yet he knew precision, patience, and care. Grace watched him with cautious hope, her small fingers brushing the table nervously. As he worked, Jacob's mind wandered to his own childhood, spent in mansions but devoid of real warmth, his father more interested in stock options than bedtime stories. Perhaps that was why this girl's pain felt so acute, so urgent. He wanted, somehow, to give her what he had never been given: attention, care, and the feeling that someone truly understood her grief. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, and sunlight began filtering through the clouds. Inside, the cafe was nearly empty, except for the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of cups. Jacob meticulously repaired the toy, aligning tiny wooden joints, sanding rough edges, and carefully gluing the broken pieces. Grace stayed silent for the most part, watching him as if he were performing a kind of magic. Time seemed suspended, measured not in minutes but in breaths and quiet moments. As he worked, Grace shared stories of her father, how he had taught her to ride a bike, to draw, to dream. She spoke of their last days together, of the hospital room filled with machines and the fragile hope in her father's eyes. Each story chipped away at Jacob's carefully constructed armor of detachment. He found himself laughing softly at her memories, almost as if he was remembering a version of life he had never allowed himself to live. The toy, once broken, now began to regain its shape, mirroring the healing unfolding in the room. Jacob realized that what he was doing went far beyond repairing a simple wooden toy. He was mending a piece of a broken heart, and in the process, something within him was shifting as well. He had spent decades chasing wealth and influence, believing they were the ultimate measures of success. Yet here, in this small cafe, he discovered that the true value lay not in possessions or power, but in connection, empathy, and the quiet acts of kindness that ripple outward, unseen but profoundly felt. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. Finally, he held up the toy, perfectly restored. Grace's eyes widened, tears threatening to spill. She clutched the toy to her chest, her relief and gratitude radiating through every tiny motion. "It's perfect," she whispered, voice trembling. Thank you so much." Jacob smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years, a lightness as if the weight of a lifetime had shifted from his shoulders. In that moment, Jacob realized that true wealth was measured not in bank accounts, but in moments like this, in the capacity to touch a life, to ease a burden, to be present when someone needed you most. Grace, with her simple request and unwavering faith, had reminded him of something he had long forgotten, that love, kindness, and attention are the most valuable gifts of all. As Grace prepared to leave, she paused and turned back to him. Her eyes shone with hope and newfound courage. "I'll never forget this," she said softly. Jacob nodded, silently understanding that their encounter had changed them both. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to engage, like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of the power of kindness. And before you go, leave a comment about a small act of kindness that changed your life. You might inspire someone today. Jacob watched her disappear into the drizzle, the repaired toy clutched tightly in her hands, and felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. For the first time in years, he understood that life's most meaningful moments are often the quiet, unseen ones, the ones where you give without expectation, where you repair not just objects, but hearts. That morning in the cafe, a millionaire and a little girl had met by chance, and in doing so, had reshaped each other's worlds. Jacob returned to his table, coffee now cold, but his spirit renewed. He realized that the world was full of little broken pieces, waiting for someone willing to care enough to fix them. And in that thought, he found a purpose far greater than any deal, any contract, any fortune. Sometimes it only takes a small act, a willingness to listen, a willingness to care, to change a life, and in doing so, to rediscover the humanity you thought you had lost. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the streets sparkling and alive with possibility. Jacob took a deep breath, looking out the window, and for the first time in a long time, felt hope. Not the abstract, distant hope he had chased in his career, but a real, tangible hope, born from connection, from empathy, from the simple act of listening to a child in need. And he knew, without a doubt, that this encounter would stay with him forever, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can echo through eternity.